Hi everyone, it's Wednesday night again, and our guest tonight is Haig Ter Ghevendian. I'm gonna let Nishan introduce him. Hi, Haig.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our Wednesday night interview/presentations. And tonight, our guest is Haig Ter Ghevendian, who, by the way, just finished his law school from Southwestern and then took the bar exam during the war in October. We wish him all luck. He's waiting for the response in January. He's a graduate of Loyola Marymount College in a double degree in history and philosophy. I'm very excited about tonight because I have a feeling I'm going to learn a lot about international law in Artsakh. And here's Haig. Hello, Haig. Thank you for joining.
Hello. Thank you for that introduction. Good to be here.
So I'm going to let you take over and tell us a little bit about you, a little bit about how international law in Artsakh came about, and fill us in on how things are going and what can we learn from you.
Sure thing. So all of this began mainly because I've always wanted to help the Armenian cause. I felt like that was in me, specifically toward the Armenian genocide. That happened when I was in high school. And even though I was a really shy kid back then, a couple of great mentors and teachers taught me that I had a voice. And I realized that maybe it's my way of speaking, like in law, trying to find the rules and, working with different countries and people to get the Armenian genocide known and to argue in the International Court of Justice. I got older and I realized that's a really grandiose task. But I still wanted to help. And so when, I still kept the torch on, I learned international law. But before that, obviously, I had to understand how it was really constructed. And international law is this very interesting combination of human nature and, philosophy and the history of different peoples, how they came to be. Because eventually that forms this basis between countries of how to interact with each other. And that's called international law. So as I got closer to the end of my law school, I was always looking for an opportunity to kind of learn more about international law and put my chops to the test. In a very unexpected fashion, it turns out there was this war. Ever since it happened, it was a week before the bar exam, and me and my Armenian friends, we all who were studying for the bar just texted each other rampantly, like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. What are we gonna do? We may as well write about the war in the essay section of the bar exam. But we stood strong and we realized that, or we remembered at least, that the most important thing for us right now to help our people is to be successful lawyers. It's to beat this test despite the psychological effects, happening to every Armenian all over the world. Because one day we knew that those skills would help other people and we couldn't just let this stop us. So after the war ended, me and my friends still felt a little helpless in a way, that finally we're done with this exam, we're done studying, but look at what we've dropped into. And so me and my longtime friend, Mariam Nazaretian, who was also from Pilivos, when we grew up together basically. She went to law school with me, she went to LMU with me, and the running joke between us is that we almost ignored each other the entire time. And then once law school hit, slowly that evaporated. And then right now we're basically in touch every day, because what happened was we're both angry about the war and what's happening to Armenian people. And so many people were, they didn't understand what was happening, why this was happening. For instance, war crimes were being committed. Why is no one putting a stop to them? And we realized, because so much information was coming and everybody was in a daze, that we needed to organize this in a certain way. So then we created this thing called the war crimes chart, committed by Azerbaijan and by Turkey. And that blew up. And it was at that point where we started talking about, trying to educate people on exactly what's happening in Artsakh from an international law point of view, so that we can clarify what can we do now and what can we do in the future to get the justice that Armenia truly deserves and to preserve our nation for generations to come from the legal realm. And so that's when we started working on different projects. Mine was the International Law in Artsakh series, which covers different aspects of international law, war crimes, genocide. The first episode was about international law in general, just to give people a primer. And then after that, it's just a matter of building on it. What more can come out of this? And my hope is that by kind of educating people, that panic will reduce, we can get organized. By teaching people what is happening, you now have targets and objectives that you can tackle. And in that sense, I just kept on doing those videos and people responded well. And each video was a donation, or a fundraiser rather, to different projects. Like the Armenian Wounded Heroes Fund is my personal favorite. I think that the very first people we need to help in Hayasan are those who went to the front lines and gave everything, for all of us, all over the world, not just the ones in Armenia. And so that was the ethos behind it. And the next project was going to be Prep to Coffee, which is a podcast between me, Mariam Nazaretian, and our other law school friend, which talks about all of this, gives context to the Qarabakh War, how it started in the early 1900s in terms of the separation of Qarabakh from Hayastan and between the Soviet Union and all of that calamity, and then how it came to be. And afterwards, we covered different topics like intergenerational trauma, different Armenians from different walks of life, half Armenians, Spyurka Hais, Tegatsis, all over, just to kind of bring us all together. And in an effort to, not be so divided within ourselves and come together and work together for a better future, better Armenia.
And that's a very good
Yes.
point, Haig, is the unity. The more unified we are, the stronger we are, the more effective we are, and the more divided we are,
Productive.
the weaker we are. And we can go by the wayside if we don't stick together and if we don't focus on the real enemy with use our resources. I mean, there's so many Armenians who are resourceful, who are educated, who are intelligent, who are forward looking, and we have to band together. And that's an excellent point that you make.
Absolutely. It's if we're not unified, then we won't last. And we need to remember our history. It's that, you know, there were times where sure something happened, like the genocide, let's say, which scattered us all. But it was only after coming together and forming organizations, humanitarian organizations for Armenia, for instance, that helped us rebuild and helped us exist to this day. And it's something we should never forget, that some of our greatest successes happened in our most tragic of times. And I see that not as a tragedy, but I see that as a beacon of hope, that we've been here for thousands of years, and we've been the boulders that have been hit by the waves all throughout history, but we're still here. We've become smoother in that essence. We've become stronger. And that's something we can't stop.
That's right. Can you tell us a little bit in more detail about the international law in Artsakh, and tell us, you know, what if there is something that we or the younger generation, I don't, you know, I won't put myself in the younger generation, but what can they, or what, you know, what are some of the things that, what some advice you can give them, and if you can go into that.
Sure. So when it comes down to international law, you know, a lot of people see it as something that's not as strong as domestic law, because it's, you know, quote unquote, unenforceable. But we need to remember that it's because of international law that we had situations like, you know, the US intervention into Kosovo that stopped, I'm sorry, major crimes against humanity, war crimes, and stopped a multitude of humanitarian crises, and eventually paved the road for something that looks like reconstruction. Now, that's one of a couple of examples, but at least that's one of the more recent ones. Through international law, the main importance of it is that when you have a set of facts, a set of events that occur in the world, a lot of different countries will sit down and debate in their Congress or their parliament and this and that. But whenever you say that, no, this is indisputably a crime against humanity, this is indisputably a war crime, and you prove that in international courts whatsoever, then just as much as grass is green and sky is blue, a war crime occurred. And the area of debate now shrinks. There isn't more gray space to say that, oh, well, they were defending themselves, or, oh, well, this was a proportional attack, let's say, like a counterattack. It's like, no, this happened. And so to fight for that and to fight for truth, essentially, as hard as you can, even though it might seem like it's sometimes, you know, not going in the direction that you want it, in the sense that, you know, it takes a long time for these sorts of events to be solidified in courts. It is going somewhere, and it happens little by little, step by step. For instance, one of the most recent events that occurred was that the Armenian Bar Association started this project called, you know, filing a report to the United Nations, the Committee to the Eradication of Racial Discrimination, called CERD. And the idea behind that report was to submit to the United Nations and to say that Azerbaijan and Turkey have both racially discriminated against Armenians before, during, and after the Second Karabakh War. And this isn't a simple, oh, they called me an Armenian dog kind of discrimination. This is targeted attacks everywhere in the world, whether it be Lyon or Glendale, or even in Gharabagh or Artsakh after the war occurred, like as we saw, unfortunately, with our elderly citizens there, that these attacks were targeted because we were Armenian. And some may think that, well, you're just saying that they've been continuing a practice over time of racial discrimination. But the bigger picture is that because this was targeted against us, a specific people, that this provided foundation for physical attacks and for acts such as like targeting civilians. And what I am kind of putting forth, or what I tried to put forth in my previous video, a potential step toward arguing genocide. So even though this sort of report may seem small to the outside viewer, from an international law point of view, it can become something significant. And it just keeping that nose to the grindstone, investigating, keeping up to date, and knowing that none of this is not going unnoticed is something that motivates people like me and the rest of the team who put that report together to send to the United Nations, going and not, not falling, unmotivated. And I think that, that may be one of the biggest or most significant kind of advice I can give to the younger generation. Whatever you're doing is not useless. You need to understand that even your smallest act can make a massive difference in Armenia. This is why I love your page, by the way, Buy Armenian. Because all of us shop, all of us go to the grocery store, and we buy so many things, sometimes like hung up stuff. But when, we can get the very same things that are imported and exported from Armenia, and that helps that economy. We don't always need to get stuff coming from Bangladesh or like stuff from Turkey, or I haven't really seen an Azerbaijani product. I don't think they really export anything other than, last I checked, there was oil and tomatoes, which is kind of a sad economy if you think about it. But we can really help our people simply by even going to the grocery store. But, not only that, sometimes, like, for instance, I ran into the younger crowd because I'm also a martial artist. I teach, I help teach at least younger kids. And some of them kind of contact me through Facebook going, well, Haig, what can I do to help? And I said, well, what are you doing right now? I was like, I'm in high school and I can't really do too much. I'm focused on my studies. I said, good. Keep to your studies. You need to understand that Armenians are hard workers because of our history, because we've had to struggle all throughout our nation's history. And that's why we provided a generation of truly talented individuals time and time again. And I say this with full confidence. As long as there is one successful Armenian in the world, people like Erdogan and Aliyev cannot sleep easy at night, because that successful Armenian will come after them somehow, not in evil ways, in the right ways, in the just ways. And they will win the day for us. And not only that, that successful Armenian will bring up other successful Armenians. In Hominid Men, back in Boy Scouts, we had a phrase, Bartsratsir, Bartsratsur. Raise yourself and raise others. And that ethos is important. It's stay true to what you're doing, study hard, have patience.
Right.
Please have patience. It will pay off. This isn't over. We're not going anywhere.
We just started, actually.
Absolutely. This is a start.
Haig, I was going to ask you, do you know of any lawsuits in an international court about the war crimes against Azerbaijan and Turkey during this recent war?
You best bet they're happening. Pretty much as many international courts that have jurisdiction over both countries, which really means that Armenia and Azerbaijan and Turkey have all signed on to a specific treaty which has allowed international courts to have jurisdiction over them. They are receiving reports from Armenia, lawsuits for various things. Again, war crimes, crimes against humanity. I believe we have one. I think we have a couple from different countries coming, arguing genocide, because Armenians from the diaspora can, like the same way how we gave to the United Nations the CERD report here from the United States, as well as some other Armenians in Europe as well. We all banded together and we gave to them. Different Armenians in different countries are filing various lawsuits to send to Armenia, to send to the international courts eventually. Not only that, but there are even some American lawsuits happening against Azerbaijan, because this was a lawsuit filed, I believe, from a Chicago law firm, Kerkorian LLC, against L3 Harris, which is a drone company. I believe that drone company supplied parts to the drones used by Azerbaijan to commit strikes against citizens in Artsakh. So even then, through American law, through federal law, some are bringing lawsuits. So any way that we can, lawsuits are going. They're happening. No lawyer is sleeping on this opportunity.
Do you have any experience as to maybe how long a lawsuit like that would take to come to a trial? Is it like 10 years? Is it 5 years, 20 years? Just a ballpark. I know it's a very vague question, but just to get an idea.
It's not vague at all. It's, these lawsuits do take time, of course, especially in the international realm. The International Criminal Court, for instance, I think the last statistic I heard was they receive up to 50,000 lawsuits yearly. Now, it's not like they take their sweet time. They really work on these as fast as they can. Sometimes those courts create other smaller courts called tribunals to split up the work and to have the prosecutors investigate those war crimes. So it's not just, 7 judges or justices in the Hague Criminal Court just kind of sitting down and going through 50,000 lawsuits. This process is distributed. And so it could take, 5 years, it could take 10 years. I think 10 years may be a fair assessment, but I don't think it would go beyond that. So as far as, Armenian lawyers are working, and even if Azerbaijan or Turkey tries to stall that process, the court still moves. Even if there's some sort of undue delay happening, that's noted against Azerbaijan. And they basically say, hey, we got 49,999 other cases we got to go through. We can't sit on this one. So either come and start arguing or lose this case.
And then once a case is won or lost, what's the entity that follows through with that? Is it the United Nations, an arm of the United Nations, or is there a like a global police or army or something like that?
Sometimes I wish not, but that there's a global police or a global army. But like I said before, the idea with international law, or at least one of its weakest points, is that it is unenforceable. But like I said before, because different countries debate as to who committed a crime and who didn't, they're doing so because they want to see if they're going to be on the right side of history or not. Usually these debates happen in the context of business relationships. Let's say Britain is buying oil from Azerbaijan, but Britain also sees that innocent Armenians are being beheaded by Azerbaijan. Now, before there is some sort of judgment against Azerbaijan saying this happened, like your armed forces or committed gross war crimes against the Armenians of Artsakh, the British parliamentarians can debate and they can say, well, you know, we can still continue our business relationship. This is something that their armed forces did, not the businessmen there. This is something safe that we can still undergo. But then whenever you have something like a judgment, which becomes public after that, that war crimes occurred, that this very country committed war crimes, suddenly countries want to stay away from those kinds of countries. They don't want to do business with them. They don't want to be associated with blood money. And that's kind of the magic that happens with international law. It's that it provides a coaxing, I suppose, of even greater penalties, you know, from international business levels. Because I think it was Eric Hagopian who said, Azerbaijan is 5 minutes away from becoming another Bangladesh. And what happened was Bangladesh at some point had a high economy because of their natural resources, but suddenly no more natural resources. It became a very, very poor country almost overnight. And when Azerbaijan relies on oil transport for so long, then you have two things to worry about. A more internationally friendly country who has better rates on their oil, or the fact that your oil supply might tank quite literally overnight. So that is sort of the enforceability that occurs. It's that you see this very visible sort of change in attitudes of countries that deal with countries that just received a negative result against them, or a negative judgment, I'm sorry, in an international court. It's like an invisible hand, if that term is familiar.
Thank you for that. There's a question by a member, Hasmik Zakarian, and who says that she's seen so many horrible videos of Azeris torturing Armenian soldiers, and there's so many of them on social media. Can those videos be used in a court of law when making a case?
Absolutely.
And is there a site, a website, or is there an entity where those videos can be forwarded to in order for them to have those on behalf of the Armenians?
So first, absolutely, those videos can be used as evidence in international court. They can be offered as exhibits, and you can provide context behind those videos as well, so that you can say, it happened on this day, it happened on this time, this individual in the camera is so-and-so citizen who is unjustly being persecuted or killed in this video by a soldier who clearly has an Azerbaijan coat of arms on their shoulder. And it's very important evidence. It's firsthand evidence. It's something that a lot of different countries in the history of international law did not have the luxury of having. We live in a technological age, so these videos are paramount. I myself, along with a couple of other people working on projects like the War Crimes Chart, are collecting these videos. Anytime a new one comes, we record it and we put it into a database. And we put a description on it, and we categorize it, we file it. We say, on this day, this happened. It is a violation of this treaty signed by both Armenia and Azerbaijan. And some, even if not signed, are still relevant. So if you have these videos, what first I would do is possibly post them maybe on Twitter. Well, actually, no, I disregard that. Do not post on Twitter. Some of these are very gruesome. They're not meant for the public eye. But you can contact me, and I can either myself put it into a data bank, or I can refer it to the relevant people who every day diligently take these videos and put them into the data bank.
So just something came to mind that I wanted to share with you. It must be really hard looking at these videos. I mean, every time I see one,
I
I
can't
don't want
watch
to,
them.
I
Yeah.
don't, it's very
Yeah.
depressing. It makes me angry that, how is it in this day and age, this is possible, and it's shared and it's touted and it's, like and on social media, the Azeris, they're really relentless, and
Yeah.
it's like clockwork.
Yeah.
And it's depressing. How is it? How can tell me some of the things that you feel when watching these and like
Oh
Lily says,
man.
we
I
can.
can't watch, like, I stopped watching it every time. I have to skip it. Otherwise,
Yeah. It's so there was, when I first started helping to collect these videos for the organizations that I'm affiliated with, uh, it I realized pretty quickly that if I consistently did this every day, that I'm my psyche is not going to be in a good place at all. Because for a lot of us, this war was the first exposure to the real disgustingness of what human beings are capable of, and it's incredible in the literal sense of the word. You can't fathom that this actually occurs. Um, Even whenever I learned philosophy, we learned about the spirit of people. Why do we do what we do? What is right? What is wrong? And after watching so many of these videos, I began to question, thinking, how can a sane person who lives in this world, who has, uh, a partner, who has children, just fetishize these killings and show them in public? It boggles my mind, and that's when I realized, okay, you have to take a break, Haig. You must slow it down, which is the first step. The second step, you don't necessarily have to watch the entire thing. Just know enough where a war crime is happening and put it down. Because you don't need to punish yourself.
yeah.
You don't, the people, the innocents who were subject to that treatment don't want, their memory to be known like that. I think, at least. And our job is to make sure they rest in peace, is to work to make sure that their memory is not one of dread, but is going to be a victory for us one day against the perpetrators. And that's how I see it. I'll be honest, I can't watch a full video at this point of, say, a beheading or something. And I mean, I think it's human nature, but at least on my view, we can't just sit down and observe all of this and come out unscathed. Which is why it's important. Just be aware that it happened. Don't watch the whole thing, but honor the memory.
Yes.
Work hard every day. Remember that you are here right now. You're here right now. You have the capability to do a lot to help them, to help their family, and to help your people.
Tell us a little bit about the blog that's coming up that you're working on.
Right. So, like I said before, Mariam Nasaretian and Mineli Grigorian and I, we all came together during that whole cycle of what are we doing? How can we help? And we decided to create a podcast called Prep the Coffee. And it was Prep the Coffee because Mariam thought, what if we just sat down and talked about whatever's going on as if it's casual, and then tried to explain it to somebody else. And she thought, like, yeah, it's kind of like a certain Instagrammer's shirt or slogan, which is "Gofendir Galisink." So it's like, I'll put on the coffee, you come over, we'll talk about it over some suj. And then the light bulb hit in her head and she went, "Ghevendian, galisnik." But not a lot of people would get that because we want it to be sort of public, not just to Armenians. And then I thought, oh, what about prep the coffee? And she said, it rolls off the tongue. It works well. So we decided, okay, we're going to make a podcast. We're going to talk about not just the Artsakh conflict, the history of it, what it came to be, but humanitarian issues, different Armenians from different walks of life and different ethnicities, like Ethiopian Armenians, South American Armenians, what their experiences was like growing up, for instance, how was it like for them? And really bridging the gap between all Armenians everywhere, as well as even other peoples. And to show that really we're not all so different and that we all have very, very similar and interesting values. We have many things to contribute and to kind of clear the gray and the fog one coffee at a time. So that should be coming up pretty soon. I want to say in the new year. We've already got a few episodes lined up. We're working on a couple, starting from what happened with Artsakh in 1918, and then slowly building our way up, and then having guests on. And so we hope that it will be a success.
And where would we watch that or hear that or listen to that?
So we've already made the different socials. We've made the Twitter account, the Facebook, and we have a YouTube channel. Everything that we do will be uploaded to YouTube, and some shorter versions will be uploaded to Instagram and Facebook. I guess however length of a video that we can really put on those social medias. Primarily YouTube.
What's the name of the YouTube channel, for example?
Prep the Coffee.
Prep the Coffee. All right. Mm-hmm. All right. So you heard it here. Well, I don't know if you have, I'm sure you have a lot more to say. If you want to share anything specific, by all means.
Just wanted to, thank you both for giving me the opportunity to, share my story, to share the work. I also want to give special thanks to Evelyn. I'm friends with both of her sons, and I'm glad that we still kept contact for all this time. I want to thank her, and I want to just remind every viewer who's watching this that wherever you are, there's always a way to help, and never feel that your contribution is small, because you've lived it and you've loved it. The very small contributions over time are what lead to the grand result, and that's what's going to make a greater Armenia at the end of the day.
Thank you, and you actually beat us in thanking
Yes,
Evelyn, who's the one who
she always works behind the scene and then
never gets the credit.
Yes, thank you, Evelyn.
That wraps up another Wednesday evening for our interview. We because our presentations are always on Wednesday evenings, we were planning on having one next Wednesday about shipping from Armenia, but a few people on our page reminded us that next Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock is really 7 a.m. in Armenia, and it's New Year's Eve day, and at 7 a.m. New Year's Eve day.
We're not thinking about New Year's, Christmas.
And they said, do you realize it's New Year's Eve day and no one's going to be watching from Armenia? And I said, you're right, but
for us, it's a working day. No time to work.
I don't know who feels like this, but it doesn't seem like Christmas. It doesn't seem like New Year's. It doesn't seem like anything. It's like we're so wrapped up with what's going on, but it's a very valid point. So we're going to change the time. We may have it either this weekend or next weekend, depending on whether we have all the facts that we're gonna share with our members. So we'll post it on the page and look for it, and we'll see you then. In the meantime, Haig, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us and letting us know some of the things that you're working on as far as international law in Artsakh. I wish you the best. And like you said, nothing that we do is too small. A drop in the bucket is only a drop, but when you add 10,000 drops, you fill the bucket. So we'll say thank you, and as much as possible, have a Merry Christmas, and keep up the good work.
Yes.
Thank you. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you and all the viewers as well. Thank you for having me.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good
Good
night.
night,
Good
everyone.
night, everyone.